Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Welcome back to the Israel issue, where in this series we're thinking about some of the tough questions raised by God's choice of the people of Israel to be a holy nation and a kingdom of priests. Today's tough question is, so what about the Palestinians? And that's actually two tough questions. The first is, what about the Palestinian people? And then secondly, what about the Palestinian problem? Let's start with the Palestinian people, who are human beings, who are made like every other human being in the image of the God who does not want any to perish, but all to be saved. So now let's add in some of those distinctives about the Palestinian people. First of all, that they actually only became an identifiable people group in the last century. And it happened, like it's happened for many other people groups in history, through the course of events. But what makes them so utterly distinctive is their background ideology that so shapes their life experience directly or indirectly, which is based on the elimination of Israel, which sometimes their leaders simply refer to as the Zionist entity. And this ideology is not just to do with the so-called occupation of Palestine. It predates that by an incredibly long way, by 1300 years, because it goes right back to the very inception of Islam. And this demonstrates that what so defines and shapes the Palestinian people is their experience of a spiritual battle, which is that which is described in Ephesians 6, which says, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the worldly forces of this darkness, and against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places." So the Palestinian people are actually living on an earthly battlefront of the supernatural battle. Right now they're being incited by the devil because of his hatred of the return of the people of Israel to their historic land. And they're also living under a false name, because the name Palestine was given to the land of Israel by the Romans in the 1st century AD to curse Israel, because it was a reminder of Israel's former enemies, the Philistines. But then add into this that the so-called Palestinian people have never actually had any identifiable tie to the land. They've never been a self-governing people in the land. Because though God promised the eternal ownership of the land, it would be theirs forevermore, he never promised to them the occupancy of it forevermore. And because of that, the land has actually had a very varied occupancy. Let me quickly run you through it. 324, part of the Byzantine Empire. 614, part of the Persian Empire. 629, ruled by the Umayyan Arabs. 750, ruled by the Abbasid Arabs. 878, ruled by Egypt. 1099, conquered by the Crusaders. 1187, Kurdish rule with Saladin. 1250, Egyptian Mamelukes take over. 1517, the Ottoman Empire begins. 1917, British rule begins. And then in 1948, the foundation of the Jewish state. Now, here's one more thing to take into account in the so-called occupation of Palestine, which is that the Arab inhabitants of the land need not have left at the founding of the nation. Because at that great Declaration of Independence in May 1948, David Ben-Gurion urged the Arab inhabitants of the land to remain to help with the development of the land. But in fact, 600 of the 750,000 Arab inhabitants of the land fled. They were in fear of reprisals following the prior Islamic Nazi alliance, and they were also assured by their Arabic leaders that it would only be a matter of days before they could return to their homes, because that's as long as it would take to drive this new fledgling nation of Israel into the sea. But of course, that is not what happened. The sovereign God intervened to fulfill this ancient promise. Yes, I will plant them on their land, and they will never again be picked up out of their land that I have given to them. And so that's the background which led up to Yasser Arafat's founding of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, with its aim of using the West Bank and Gaza like launching pads for a regional war which would result in the driving of Israel into the sea. But whatever pressure God will allow to come on the nation of Israel to cause it to turn back to him, the one thing we can be absolutely sure, because of God's promise from Amos, is that Israel will not ever now be removed from the land. And this means that there isn't any military action which would resolve the Palestinian problem in the way that the Palestinians would want. Neither is there any political solution that will result, and certainly not the division of the land. Because what that will simply bring about is judgment on the nations who dare to divide God's land. On behalf of my people, even my inheritance, Israel, whom they scattered among the nations, and they divided up my land. That said, there is a supernatural end-time outcome prophesied in Isaiah chapter 19, which puts the Palestinian problem into another perspective entirely. Because it speaks of the end-time blessing that there will be on the nations which surround Israel during Yeshua's final reign on earth. And pray God, as that blessing goes out to the nations which surround Israel, there will be people who were previously known as Palestinians, but now under a new name. In that day there will be a highway from Egypt to Assyria, and the Assyrians will come to Egypt, and the Egyptians will worship with the Assyrians. In that day Israel will be the third, along with Egypt and Assyria, a blessing in the midst of the earth. For God has blessed, saying, "Blessed is Egypt, my people, and Assyria, my handiwork, and Israel, my inheritance." And here's the amazing thing about it. You and I can actually play a part in helping to bring resolution to this humanly irreconcilable problem by working for the saving of all Israel. Because it's only when all Israel is saved that there will truly be justice in the land and going out to the nations all around the land of Israel. And you and I can actually play a part in this by working towards the saving of all Israel. Now, if you'd like to think more about this, do go to our website, www.lethelionroar.com. Go to the Israel Issue tab. There you'll find today's episode with a short study to go alongside it. You'll find previous episodes as well. If you're watching for the first time, do hit the subscribe button so that you'll get it direct in the future. And please tell others about this most vital message of all. And I look forward to being back with you in the not too distant future with another episode of the Israel Issue.